All right. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? This is the second segment of the Python training by PySphere. In the very first session, we looked at a lot about data types. We looked at the string data type. We looked at the integers. We looked at floats. We looked at boolean. We're taking it a little bit higher today by looking at more advanced data types. We'll also be looking at a data type called list, tuple, set, and dictionary. Now, in our previous class, we explained what basic strings are. We also explained what floats are. We explained a lot of things. But this is an advancement to that. And also, in this segment, we'll be running a whole lot of code. So we'll be pairing up the slides and code block with a live IDE. So in the previous video, I also explained that you can install any IDE of your choice. We have PyCharm, we have VS Code, we have Atom. There are just too many. There are thousands of text editors out there. You can actually use anyone you intend to use. Okay, so I'll pair this up with my VS Code side by side while we do the work. All right, so I'm just going to clear this all out and Control V to start from here. So I'm going to print my list, the very first stuff there. So we're just going to run this. You can use the play button. If you're familiar with the terminal, you can call out the file directly as I'm doing. So yeah, this is the list. As you can see, the very first item here. Now, some unique properties about list is uh, we can actually access items in a list based on index. The very first index is always 0. So when we run this code, we should have the very first number here. That is 1. Yeah, so our output here is 1 because the very first item on this list based on index. Remember, the index always starts counting from 0. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. If this was another number, just trying to track this so it doesn't confuse anybody. When we run this code, you can see the index of 0 is still this. So we can decide to print out all of these items. Yeah, so we can decide to print out tuple. We can also decide to print out the dictionary, and we can decide to print out the set definitely. Now, the interesting thing about some of these data types is some are mutable, some are not mutable, some can be accessed by index, some cannot be accessed by index. First of all, you need to understand that the dictionary is accessed based on key and value, So for you to access the item in the dictionary, you need to have the key or know the key. That then gives you the access to the value. For the list, things can be indexed. Now let's try something interesting. Now for our set, let's try indexing the set, and we run our code, and you see quickly it gives out an error. This is because the set object is not subscriptable. That's to say, you cannot just use index on it. You cannot index a particular area in the set. Yeah. So you need to actually know the right time to use a list, the right time to use a set, a tuple dictionary. But I fell victim to this because when I was just starting, I, everything I did was all about list because the list was a little bit easy to manipulate. As I said, you can index them. You can also you can also change values in the list and so on. So it was a little bit easy to to use the list. But when I began to do what we call competitive programming or DSA, I discovered that using the wrong data type may actually make your code not execute as fast as it's supposed to be. So sometimes what you need is actually a set. Sometimes what you need is a dictionary. Sometimes what you need is a tuple. It depends. So yeah, there are a lot of grades on that, but let's go on. Okay, so let's look at more advanced stuff in as we go on. So we also looked at for loops before now, and we say for loop is a kind of cycle that can run infinitely until we provide an endpoint. So if we look at this code, I'm just going to copy this and we're going to play with it just like we did before now. So if you look carefully at this code, what happens now? Let me ask us, you can use the comment box. What do you think happens at the end of this code? What will be the value of evens or ifs? What will be that value? So if I run this code, yeah, nothing happens because we're not printing out anything. So let's quickly print out. Yeah. So what do you think that value will be? uh, all right, so 02468. So how did we get to this point that we now have 026? Now for you to understand very well, you may also want to print out squares to really understand what's happening. Yeah, so we have squares there. I'm just going to rewind that. Okay, so now you can see the very first value is 0149116. How did we get that? Okay, so first of all, x is in the range of 5. That implies that x is the number 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? We talked about this in the previous class and we said the range of 5 is the numbers below 5 and 5 not inclusive. So that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so here we actually square up the value of x and we put them all in a list. So what happens is 0 square is 0, 1 square, yeah, 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4. Let me take the cursor to where this is happening. So 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9, and 4 square is 16. So that's how we got this very first section. Then how did we get this section? Okay, I think I should okay, yeah. So as I was saying, this 0149116. So if we then print out the events, which of course is the module of 2, so we're then going to have 02468, right? I don't know if you guys get the point, but yeah. So that's basically how it works, right? So here you can see we use the filter command and we're putting all of these filtered items into another list, right? So yeah, okay, so let's move on to more examples, and if you feel that I'm omitting something, you can just let me know. Okay, so let's move on to file handling. How do we handle files? Okay, so in Python, with these 2 lines of code, you can actually open a file and you can write to it. Now, every file, especially if you're on Linux system, has some set of permissions. Now, in Linux spaces, in Mac OS and some other, stable OS, um, we have modes. We also have permissions and we also have ownership. So if you are the owner of a file, you can actually read, you can actually write to it based on the permission you set to that file. Now, the very first thing you need to know is that there is file ownership, right? So if you're not the owner of a file, there's a possibility that you may not be able to read it, especially if the owner of that file does not permit that. Now, if you are the owner of a file, there comes in permission. So a file can be yours, but perhaps you have not given yourself the permission to read it. Yeah, so when we say read, we mean accessing a file as to get data from it. And when we say write, it means accessing a file as to impute data into that file. So yeah, those are the 2 basic modes, to read and to write. As we go on, you can hear things like append, which implies that you don't intend to clear the previous data, but just to add more data below the already existing data. All right, so yeah, so we open up the file and we can write to it. So if this file doesn't exist, it will automatically be created. Yeah, so also we can actually work with JSONs and CSV files. We understand, for those of us that are very new, there are files that we actually use to store a lot of data in an ordered and structured manner. The two of the very popular types are the JSON file formats and the CSV file formats. Most of these things come by default with Python. So if you ever have to work with JSON or CSV, it is very easy to manipulate, especially if you're on Python. Okay, so before now I talked about functions, and I told us that functions are made to help us achieve a set goal. We looked at some basic functions like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and so on. But it gets more interesting when you get into the area of object-oriented programming, aka OOP. In object-oriented programming, we kind of work with objects and classes, and there are a lot of interesting things like inheritance, polymorphism, and so on. So the objects here are self-declared, are declared functions that exist inside that class. We can have a combination of classes and you can call them all together. Okay, so to avoid too much talk, let's assume we have a function called add. It requires two parameters x, y, and what this function does, like my AI tool here already suggested, it returns the addition of these two values. Yeah, and we also have another function that does similar stuff, but it is subtraction. We have another one that does similar stuff, but this one handles multiplication, and we have another one that actually does similar stuff, but this one handles division, and so on and so forth. All right, so okay, so let's end here for now. Some of these AI tools want to suggest the hell out of everything. I mean, they're actually good. Okay, so now when we print out uh the addition of 4 and 5, or 5 and 4, when we print this out, you can see here we have 9. Now there's something in Python called comments. I think we created that. So to comment this on VS Code, you just have to hold control and slash, and that brings in all the hash. Yeah, so these are some sort of functions, right? And we can use these functions this way. um, what's cool is we have all of these as functions, right? But what if we wanted to create a class to house up everything in mathematics that it relates to arithmetics? So we want to create a class to house up everything, right? We can call it calculator, or I'll rather go with maths cal. Not bad. Mm. Okay, so the very first thing you need to understand, okay, the AI tool is already suggesting, is, yeah, you need to create your very first function that to be the function that initializes the class, which is very important. A lot of these omit that, and so we can push all of these code into our class. So how do we then access this? So we can say our calculator is equal to the maths cal. Yeah, so this is the class itself. We have called the class, and we can call up a method. We can call up a method of add, and in same way we can include our 5 and 4. This makes your code look very cool. It also makes your code very matured, especially when later on you intend to carry out things like inheritance, or polymorphism, or some other stuff that okay. So two parameters, yeah. So this is a very common error that happens when you're trying to turn things to a class, especially in Python. Python requires that the methods created, which of course are functions inside the class, should have self-declaration to show that they belong to that particular class. In most cases, that should fix the error. All right, so we are good. So that's 9. So the call add method can now be called anywhere in our code. Anywhere, I mean anywhere. If we're intending to write 1,000 more lines, we can call the math. Yeah, the call.add, and it adds up um, the the parameters that we provide. It's also interesting because if you intend to get inputs from users, um, if you intend to get stuff from users, we can actually go this way. Yeah, you should get yourself one of these AI tools. It makes your progress very fast, but also you need to understand what the AI tool is doing. So we're just going to create a variable and call this num1, and we'll house it as an integer. Later we'll kind of change that because the user may want to provide floats. The user may want to actually provide floats here in some cases, yeah. So but for now, just for testing, we can use integer. Okay, so we have this all set. Now instead of putting here values we know, we can put here num1, and here we can impute num2. Okay, with that setup, we just save the project and we go straight up. Let's clear all of these. I don't want it looking like we're doing the same thing over and over again. So the first number I want to enter is 20. Second number I want to enter is 50, and it sums it up and it gives us the final answer. And it also works with our class, the MathScale class. Now, this is how people create packages. So assuming there was no math library in Python, you could build something of this kind and, package it up and send it so people can install it with pip, and it becomes a very renowned package. There are default libraries or packs that come with Python. One of them, is the default random. Um, um, Random is a very good guy. He's always there. Math is also always there. That contains similar functions and methods to what we have done here. Sometimes I'm using the word method and functions interchangeably, but they're not actually the same thing, but they are very, very relative. Now, a function, as we know, is a simple section of the code that helps you achieve some stuff. Now, most methods are functions, right? Like we have seen in the area of OOP, and how we just created some sort of functions inside the class that can be called as methods with given parameters outside the main structure of the class. Yeah. Okay, so let's go on. We have looked at OOP, which is very, very good. Working with APIs and data fetching, the time comes as a Python dev where you definitely have to access an endpoint. So we're just going to take this and we take it to our VS Code. Okay, so we're going to run this to see if we have errors. All right. Now, let me explain some few things. When you see the code 200, so when you see the code 200 as printed here, the status, it means that there's no problem, that we successfully connected to that endpoint, right? But if for any reason you see codes like 403, 500, 504, and so on and so forth, it means there are some problems and you actually have to treat those problems. But when we see 200, you all go 201, 202, depending on how happy the developer feels. So yeah. So first off, for you to make requests, you need to import the request package. In some cases, I think people pip install it, but it's been ages. I've not done that. So you people install it, you check out endpoints, you assess endpoints, and that is how you can also work with APIs. Assuming you are a front-end dev, say on a web project, and the back-end developer gives you some sort of APIs. The way you can actually access those APIs is by making this set of requests to the back-end server to get the data based on the documentation of the API. All right, so let's go on. I think I'm rounding up, so I don't waste too much of our time. So useful Python libraries. I bet you guys you will definitely need the basic request, the basic OS library, the basic sys library, yeah, the basic math library, the basic random library. These set of libraries are so good. You need them almost every day. So what exactly do they do? So we're just going to run this small code snippet to see for ourselves what happens. Now you can see the very first print command here of os get current directory, as I always call it, means we should get the current working directory, which happens to be this that is printed here. The very next one says we actually asking to get details or info about the system, the current system that we're using to run Python. So it gives us the Python version, it gives us the date of release, and a whole lot of other interesting things that you may want to study as time goes on. All right, so there are a whole lot of ways you can test stuff. Um, Most times in testing, you may need packages like Unitest or PyTest, depending on exactly what you want to achieve. But as I've pointed out before now, when we get closer to the area where you select a niche, it also becomes very important for you to make those decisions there, so you know where you're going to. Like I know there's some sort of libraries I've not used for some ages now. I learned how to use them before, but somehow they are not in my niche area. So if you are a pen tester, yeah, you need a lot of these testing tools. Yeah, when we get later, when we get on to that area, we'll kind of talk about that more. So for many project, it's going to be API based. So let's run this small simple code snippet. So if we have our API key, or you can create your API key from the website as you see, you inject your API key here and you can get the current weather for London, but we don't have an API key, right? Okay. Yeah, we don't have an API key, that's one. And whatever I print out, it will definitely not be the same. So let's first of all print out data to see maybe if we have some warnings before we print out this guy. So let's run this again. And all right, so you can see the error code there, 2006 API key is invalid. So when you get your API key, you can throw it somewhere here and you have the current weather forecast. You can play around with a lot of things about weather from London. You can also change the location to your local area, and you can build an app around it, right? Be it a web app or a desktop app. All of those things are possible using Python, right? If you intend to build a web app, we are getting to that niche where we do stuff with the Django, Flask, and the rest. If you intend to build a desktop app, QK and some other builders can actually help you achieve some desktop apps and so on and so. There are other frameworks too, but all of them I think they're just doing a good job. You can also check out pip.org to see a list of packages and frameworks you may adapt or add to your project. Okay, without spending or wasting much time, I just want to say practice makes perfect. So look for a very simple project and start working on it with Python. You won't be able, or it's not compulsory for you to figure out everything on the very first run. In fact, there's room for a lot of errors. Now make the errors and make them as fast as possible and continue, because that's the most important thing. If you continue to iterate over that set of things you are doing. You continue to do them. You continue to do them. You gain mastery over it, right? So that's just my simple advice. Yeah, all right. I think we've come to the end of this section. I'm a little bit glad because I think I was able to rush up stuff. But on the other hand, do you guys understand? If you don't understand, let me know so I do another one and I take my time and I explain some concepts. If you do understand some sections and you don't understand some other section, point out the area you don't understand so that we can make more videos to treat them, to handle them. The goal is to make sure that a lot of people understand how Python programming works. All right. See you in the next one. Okay, so hello everyone. So in this particular video, we'll be looking at how to create your custom functions and your models and how you can use them across different files. So say you're building an application, and in that application, there are some unique set of functions that you are using most of the time. So you need to kind of put these functions in a utility file, and you can call them from anywhere within your app. So as you can see here on screen, I have my main application, my main Python file here, and I also have my utilities, which are some set of functions. Now if you don't know how to create a function in Python, it's very simple. You just have to define the diff, the def. Immediately you call this, you give the function a name, and if the function is to accept parameters, you provide those set of parameters. They can be as many as you want them to be. It depends on what you're building and how you want your function to operate. Okay, so here you can see I have three functions in my utilities. I have named it my utils.py. The first one is the greet function, the second one is the add, and the factorial function. For those of us that are not very conversant with the system of factorial, it is just the backward multiplication of numbers. So if I have 5 factorial, it means 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's what it means. So yeah, so I intend to use this right in my code. So here in my application, in my main Python file, you can see that I can import this particular file. Me importing this particular file simply means that all of these now I can use on my code. So when I call my utilities.greet, it is similar to just calling this guy. And when I call my utilities.add, my utilities.factorial. Now you may be thinking, why are we doing this? Now, if you begin to build a lot of applications where there are a lot of things going on, you need to group those utilities. You need to put those particular functions in a different location in most cases so that they are easy to accept. So that if this is one page, this is another page, they can all be linked to my utilities. Yeah. So I'm just going to run this. I already did, but let me just do it again. So as you can see here, it gives out hello, my name, and the set of addiction, and it factorizes here. So that backward multiplication will be 1 to 0. Immediately we change this here. We don't now. The interesting thing about building modules of this kind, when you predefine your custom functions and import them, is that you don't need to adjust things in this file anymore. For instance, all I need to do is to just change content from here and change some basic stuff here. I don't need to go back to uh, the other file, the modules file. So I'm just going to save this and I'm going to run this again so we see. Yeah, so you see, we can also change this to be the factorial of 10. I'm just going to save this and I'm going to run this. So you see the change there. All the changes we did were here, not on this. So with this simple approach now, you can also build your set of modules that you can ship out to people to use, right? So those modules we use, those libraries, I'm using those words, modules, packages, and libraries interchangeably. So those libraries that you use, like NumPy, like Math, like the OS library that is built in, like the Sys, that's the system library, and the JSON library, the random library, and so on and so forth. You don't actually adjust those libraries because they are predefined like this. So you can also build your models and ship them out. Package, you know, of course, we have a package manager called pip, but Python also has a website where most of these tools are open source. So you can actually create your own library to handle a particular problem, and you make it open source, you put it out there, people can pip install it and they can use it all around. Yeah, so it's as simple as that. In our next video, we'll try to go a little bit deep. In some of my previous videos, you may have seen that I may have been struggling with some basic syntax in some cases because it's a lot of things, happening in the brain, and sometimes when put under tension and stress, we tend to forget a lot of things. That's where AI programming comes in. Programming with an AI companion is very, very good. I won't say it undermines it actually increases your efficiency. But what I want to advise is when you don't understand the basics and you just go straight up to using AI tools, because that will make it a lot more complex to you. If you are too dependent on the AI tool, you won't know if the AI tool is actually making some mistake. You won't know if the AI tool is actually making some errors. So I have a lot of AI tools here, but for some stuffs I just keep them aside. And sometimes it's best when you check out the code the AI is providing and you go through it and make sure that okay, this is actually good. It's also good if you pair up AI tools. One writes the code, the other one reviews, and you are just there to test. That is also another very interesting thing to do. But as the set of problems keep increasing, as the problems keep going up and up and up, you may want to redefine the approach so that it is not just AI systems. You are actually actively involved. Yeah. So thank you very much. The battery is low and this is the end of this particular video. Hopefully see you in the next one when we'll talk about some more Python stuff. Bye.